My name's Tanvi, and I'm here at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, and you're tuned into Climate Action Figures.
Well, hello and welcome to an exciting new edition of Climate Action Figures. My name is John Whidden, and this week on the show, you get to meet Tanvi, who, as we record, is in Baku at COP29, and she is going to tell us all about that. But first, this week's Quick Fix. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I'll describe what you're seeing, what you would be seeing. It's a garbage can like you might find in a park, but this one particularly has little cup holders around the edge. So I suppose if you finish your pop or your beer, you can put the empty in the cup holder around the edge of the bin so it doesn't go in the garbage. And then someone coming around later would pick up the cans or the bottles and take them to the recycling station. So that's kind of cool that they set up their recycling that way. Let's welcome Tanvi. And what do you think about that quick fix, Tanvi?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it should be standard practice in a lot more city.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to do that, especially when people are needing money from recycling fees that they can collect. Now, let's talk about your experience. You are actually in Baku at COP29 right now, correct?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like for you.
This is my first COP, and it is a lot more tiring than I would have thought. The venue is massive, and running from, one meeting or one session to another is extraordinarily tiring. I think during the second week, most of the participants have been a bit under the weather just because it's been cold, we're all hungry, we're all starving. But apart from that, there's also a really nice sense of community over here, especially amongst all the youth delegates. So I guess it's nice to know you're not alone in your suffering.
Right. Now, so thank you very much for taking time out of your busy and tired schedule to meet with us here today. But also, you said starving. Tell us about that. How come you're hungry all the time?
The price of the food inside of the COP venue is extremely high. And I mean, I live in Europe, so this is way more expensive than you'd find meals in London or Paris or something. Like, I think I had a slice of lasagna the other day that was like 50 euros.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to afford the food. Can you get out to a grocery store and buy some things and bring them back?
You're allowed to bring food in, so I've been bringing like their yogurt and some other snacks in. But also, if your session starts super early in the morning, you might simply not have time to,
Right.
run to a grocery store. So what I usually do is I just have a very big dinner at the end of the day.
Right. Fill up for the next day.
Exactly.
Now, do you have a concept of how many people are actually there on the ground?
Well, I heard it's somewhere around 75,000,
Wow.
but I believe that number is split between the green and the blue zones. I've only been working in the blue zone.
Okay. What does that mean?
It's absolutely packed.
Interesting. What does that mean, the green zone and the blue zone?
The blue zone is where all of the actual negotiations happen. And it's also where you will find other high-level events happening on the bylines of the negotiations, as well as the very famous delegation pavilions. So that's sort of like a large room where different countries and organizations have a booth, and they talk about the work they have done, they are doing, and they will be doing. And you get to meet some pretty cool people face to face.
Wow.
It's an interesting space because you'll just be walking around and you run into like the president of some country giving a speech over there.
Do you want to give us an example of some interesting person you've met?
Just a few hours ago, I met the director of the UN's environmental program.
Wow.
And she's a personal hero of mine. And she was just walking along. So that was pretty cool. I think John Podesta was there as well last week, walking around the US Center. Let's see, who else have I met? I met one of my climate heroes. I met a Thai landscape architect. Somebody from the Chinese government was there as well today.
Does running into these people, Tanvi, give you inspiration to carry on with the work you've moved into in your life?
No. For me, It's not that inspiring to meet people that I don't really know personally, or if I don't know of their work. But if it's somebody whose work I've looked up to for many years, for example, the landscape architect I met, that feels super cool. It's like an out of body moment. But if it's just a random politician whose work I'm unfamiliar with, then it's just like, oh yeah, cool, bye bye.
You are in your 20s, correct, Tanvi?
That's right.
Do you feel like the youth voice is truly represented in these negotiations and this meeting at Baku?
I think it's represented at COP, but I don't think we're represented properly in the right spaces, for especially in the negotiations, in the high level events. I don't think our voices are being conveyed correctly. I think even if you have young people sitting there, if they're not able to freely express their views, can you really call that youth representation?
Right. Do you have any examples of your voice or the youth voice not being heard specifically there?
First of all, um, most of the youth interventions at high level events here in the Blue Zone have been canceled by the Azeri presidency. And the way that it has happened is that young people or young representatives are told that they have to come to whatever meeting and they have to give an intervention. And they show up, script in hand, ready to speak. And then they're told that the meeting has to be cut short. If it happens once or twice, sure. But it has happened so pervasively, it has to be systemic. And it's not just youth, it's also representatives from other observer constituencies like farmers, researchers. People
Actually,
is,
can I just pause you for a second there because that is really interesting. It seems to me this is what COP29 is all about. Do you get a sense of why that might be? Why would they derail those opportunities?
which other member states, well, this is completely my view, by the way.
Sure.
It seems true that with other member states, they have some sort of relationship with the Azeri government, right? You have to work with them, regardless of what your personal opinions are. But observer organizations like youth or farmers or researchers, they don't really care that much. They don't have that direct relationship with them. So they're more likely to be critical directly of the presidency. And that's the only reason I can think as to why almost every single intervention has been snubbed.
Okay. And your other example?
We have these high level events called the Youth Climate Forums. What it is a high level roundtable where young people get to talk directly to different countries' negotiators on a specific topic. So I moderated the session on food and agriculture, and we were actually asked to remove certain words from our scripts, including mentions of the phrase phase out fossil fuels. We were asked to remove intergenerational equity. I was asked to remove climate change
What?
from my session. Oh,
Again,
and climate migrant.
wow. So the climate migrant, I mean, this is going to be a massive problem in the coming decades. So do you get a sense of who would be behind that? What political motivation would be behind trying to excise those types of words out of the scripts?
One of the biggest problems in the last two COPs has been that there's been the creation of the youth arm of the COP presidency called the PYCC, Presidency is Climate Champion. And even though they are composed of youth, they don't really represent or toe the youth line or the youth voice. They kind of just are a youth face for the presidency's agenda. So they are the ones who've been asking us to omit these phrases.
Wow, interesting. I guess there's going to be a whole political layer that we probably don't even understand. But does this kind of incident sour you in terms of the whole experience of COP29, or do you still have some hope in what will be accomplished there?
I don't think much will be accomplished at this COP, but these experiences don't dissuade me from the idea of COPs in general, because I feel like if we weren't doing something right, they wouldn't be trying to silence all of our work,
Good
right?
point.
So at least we know we're on the right track.
Right. And in your time at COP29, where do you feel the most progress has been made, even if it's small progress? And where would much more progress be required?
The mechanisms for carbon credits have been decided, even though most of the work was already done at previous COPs. So that's the one win we have from this COP. Hopefully, maybe we'll see some progress in the adaptation negotiations, but otherwise, most of the other track, they're at a deadlock.
You, if I recall correctly, you have a soft spot for mitigation. Is that correct? Do you
Yeah.
want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's not much to tell on the negotiation part because it's at a deadlock. It was haven't been able to make progress since like 4 or 5 days ago. Mitigation as a topic is interesting because I think that there are opportunities from both state and non-state actors to make serious benefits, what we call co-benefits for people. So I think sometimes we look at climate mitigation as this super expensive and very idealistic goal to have. But the truth is, a lot of the changes that we can implement, not only are they good for the planet, they're also good for us. They give us cleaner air, they give us more livable cities. If we add things like green and blue infrastructure in our living spaces, it's better for our mental health. So I think a lot of the principles in climate mitigation, they're easy to sell, is why I would say positive about it.
Now, you are from Bangkok, correct?
Yes.
I have to ask you, you're getting a bit tired. You've been there a long time. Are you anxious to get home?
Yes. Oh my God. I cannot wait for warm weather and good food.
And thinking about home, we have never interviewed someone from Bangkok on the show. What is the general feeling in Bangkok about climate change? Let's start with the youth and then maybe move to the adults.
Bangkok is one of the most vulnerable cities to climate change. It lies under sea level. And if it were not for continuous human intervention, it would be underwater right now. So I think there's this understanding amongst everybody that it will drown eventually. It's just a question of time, and of speed. When and how is it going to happen? I think younger people are definitely more concerned about it because they don't seem to be enough plans in place to protect people, especially poor people. And so if I had to rate their anxiety from a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it about a 7, just because Thai people, we're not a very worrying type of people. I would say we're very laid back, even in the face of emergencies. So I would give it a 7.
So that would be a 7 amongst the youth. Where would you place the average adult in Bangkok society?
Probably a 5.
Okay. Because there's always
Yeah.
in North America, most scientists agree that climate change is happening and we need to do something about it. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the people moving in that direction very quickly. Is that a similar case in Bangkok?
It's not that. I think it's because when we look at our history, we used to live in flooded marshes and flooded plains. So a lot of early Thai history is us building our house on long bamboo sticks, tree houses. So I think there's this feeling that if things change and it turns into a flooded place again, he will just adapt the way that we have in the past.
And your thoughts about that?
I like the spirit, but I think that there are certain dangers that you cannot adapt from. I think what concerns me particularly as a biologist is zoonotic diseases, so diseases that are spread by animals. They're especially prevalent from floodwaters. I mean, I hope our government starts taking this a little bit more seriously. I think it's time to seriously start considering maybe moving our capital city like Indonesia is.
Moving it to a new location?
Yes.
Wow. And I should ask you before we leave that topic, you said the average youth might be at a 7. How about yourself?
I wouldn't say it's very different. I think about 7, 7.5.
Before we let you go today, Tanvi, we need to ask what your climate action is. Have you picked something?
Yes, I think people should eat more local produce, especially legumes.
Okay. Why legumes in particular?
When you grow legumes, it actually doesn't deplete nutrients from the soil, it increases it because the family of plants that we take legumes from, they're called nitrogen fixers. And what they do is they introduce more nitrogenous compounds into the soil, so it makes it healthier for future generations.
Very good advice to all of us. What gives you hope in these days?
Looking at recent scientific publications, like across different climate change fields, adaptation, mitigation, physical science, I'm seeing a lot of creativity in those articles. For example, I'm seeing people use AI in new ways to create climate models. I'm looking at people trying to integrate the role of ecosystems more strongly in how we look at wind and weather patterns on Earth. And I think it's this kind of really interconnected thinking that we need to solve the climate crisis. So that's what gives me hope.
Now, Tanvi, you are hungry, you are tired. It sounds like you're getting a cold, you're dying to get home. And we just thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to be with us here and share your experience.
Oh my God, yes. I cannot wait to get home and have a long nap.
All the best as you travel home and in your last few days at COP29. And thank you, dear listener, for being with us. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please share it with someone who you think would be interested. We will be back again next week, same time, same place, to hear from another climate action figure. Until then,
Go figures.
This has been Climate Action Figures. Our show is produced and hosted by John Whidden. Our creative consultant is Kayla McIntosh. Our theme song is Hawaii Vacation by Tovari. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Climate Action Figures. That's all one word. And if you have any other questions or comments that arose from this or any episode, feel free to reach out to us at climateactionfigures@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another Climate Action Figure.